Hello and welcome to the first video proper in the Walmart Commander Deck Challenge series. So in what is effectively episode 0, I've described exactly the premise for this series, which should hopefully run for several episodes. So this is the sort of unboxing of the Nature of the Beast Commander deck, which is going to form the really like the backbone of the series and what this is built around. So in a nutshell, what we're going to be doing is looking at Commander from the point of view of sourcing your contents or modifying your Commander deck using only magic resources, or just resources generally, from a local box store, in this example Walmart. So what I'm going to do in this first proper video is actually unbox the deck, talk a little bit about it, and then in following videos we're going to just explore the options open to us in terms of modifying it with the available card pool. And of course here, where we're dealing with the box store, one thing we won't be able to do is modify it with singles, so that presents certain design constraints in our whatever procedure we decide to use to modify the deck. So let's open this up and we'll have a look about the insert and see how this deck is designed to be played, and look at the alternative commanders that would already be in here that we could use. So here's our main commander. This is Marath, Will of the Wild, red, green, white casting cost. It's 0/0, but obviously it must come into play with some counters on it to avoid it being killed straight away through having no toughness. So Marath, Will of the Wild enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. X, remove X +1/+1 counters from Marath, choose 1, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, or Marath deals X damage to target creature or player, or put an XX green elemental creature token onto the battlefield. So what I'm expecting to find in this deck is ways of manipulating counters, so you can exploit these abilities on this commander, should I say? I keep saying general, I mean commander. So also within the deck you have these, and the idea is that you can use these oversized cards if you want. There are regular copies of the generals within the deck. When we come to open it, we'll see that. But also there are alternate generals which are in the same colour shard, and this is the Naya colour shard. There is Gaiji, Honoured One, 2 red, green, white for 4/4. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents or a planeswalker an opponent controls, that creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And Myella the Anima, which is red, green, white, same casting cost as Marath. It's a 2/3, and for 3 red, green, white, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with power 5 or greater from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And so those cards are represented in the deck. So it's obviously up to you ultimately which you choose as your commander, but the main one, if you like, is Marath. Let's zoom in on this and look at the composition of the deck. So there's Marath, we've already had a look at that. We've got Grazing Gladeheart, which is 2 and a green for a 2/2. It's got landfall on it. So there's also a landfall component in this deck. Crozen War Chief reduces the cost of beast spells in its ability, and it can also regenerate the target beast. There's our other commander, our other legendary creature, Benalia the animal, which we've already looked at. Drum Hunter. It's got card draw based on the power of your creatures, and can also generate colourless mana. Mold Shambler will destroy a target non-creature permanent if it's kicked when it enters the battlefield. Terra Ravager. So we've got a pump spell when it attacks, based on the number of lands defending player controls. Ravenous Baloth. Spellbreaker Behemoth. Gargi the Honoured One, so we've had a look at that, got a large version of that. Rakeclaw Gargantuan. So several of these cards are conditional on power 5 or greater. That one has an exit the battlefield ability on it, so when Spiked Bellows leaves the battlefield, it deals 6 damage to target creature. It's also got Evoke on it. Deadwood Treefolk has Vanishing. Crater Helion has Echo on it. Magus of the Arena. Baloth Woodcrasher, also got Landfall. Rampaging Baloths, Trample and Landfall. Valley Rannet has Mountain Cycling and Forest Cycling. Avenger of Zendikar. So when this enters the battlefield, put a 0/1 green plant creature token onto the battlefield for each land you control, and it has landfall on it as well. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each plant creature you control. And that's a 5 and 2 green for a 5/5. Croson Tusker, another card with cycling. We move on to Archangel, flying and vigilance. Eternal Dragon. Naya Soul Beast. We have a Soul Ring in the deck, so that gives us, we can tap it for 2 colourless, and it costs 1 colourless to cast. Swiftfoot Boots. Druidic Satchel. Behemoth Sledge, so we're moving on to our artefacts now. Seer's Sundial. Tower of Fortunes. And our enchantments: Darksteel Mutation, Curse of Chaos, War Cadence, Curse of the Forsaken, Curse of Predation, Fires of Yavimaya, Where Ancients Tread, Witch Hunt, Mystic Barrier, Warstorm Surge, Spawning Grounds, and now moving on to our other spells, we've got a Boros Charm, Sprouting Vines, so these are our instants, Naya Charm, Slice in Twain, Street Spasm, Restore, Hull Breach, Cultivate, and these are now our sorceries. Fiery Justice, From the Ashes, Tempt with Discovery, Harmonise. There's a Wrath of Gods, we've got board sweeping in here. 2 and 2 white, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. 1 dozen eyes, Slice and Dice, Rain of Thorns, Fireball, Savage Twister, and then we're moving on to our non-basic lands. We've got a Boros Garrison, a Boros Guildgate, a Command Tower, very useful because we can add mana of any colour in our commander's colour identity. Contested Cliffs, Drifting Meadow, Evolving Wilds, Forgotten Cave, Gruul Guildgate, Homeward Path, Jungle Shrine, Khalni Garden, Mosswort Bridge, Naya Panorama, New Benalia, Opal Palace, Rupture Spire, Secluded Steppe, Selesnya Guildgate, Selesnya Sanctuary, Slippery Karst, Smoldering Crater, Temple of the False God, Tranquil Thicket, Vitu-Ghazi the City Tree, Vivid Crag, and now we move on to our basic lands. So we have our mountains, our forests, and some plains here. So that's the deck itself, that's what it contains. What I may do, and if people are interested in me doing this, in a later video, I could maybe analyse some of the interactions within the deck. That might be useful thing to do at a point before we start really changing it round. So I'm going to open up, there were two inserts here I put to one side. One is the regular how to play, and then there's actually the one specifically for the deck that we have here. So what we're going to do is just have a look at this. So it is only for this deck. It's with some sealed decks, you know, they do contain lists of the other decks, but with this particular one, it is purely this deck. So there we have obviously an overview of everything that's in it. One nice touch I think would have been good here, nice they didn't do it. They do this with, if you've seen any of the unboxings I've done for I think the dual decks, they actually list the set they came from, which I always find fascinating because it's quite good if you're trying to track down synergistic cards. There's a good chance that you'll find them, you know, in the same set. So it's got a bit about playing the deck. So I think I'll see a little bit about in here about tokens and counters because of the cards we've seen. So let me just see if I can get that mid-screen so you can see that and maybe focus in a bit. So it says, the nature of the beast deck is commanded by Marath, Will of the Wild, a primordial beast with a fearsome combination of abilities, from building an elemental army to buffing your creatures to mowing down opposing forces and even your opponents themselves. Marath can dominate the battlefield in a number of ways. Marath grows larger and larger the more mana you spend on him, meaning this is one commander you're eager to cast over and over again. And since you can spend his +1/+1 counters on his powerful toolbox of abilities, you have unparalleled control over when he leaves the battlefield, enabling you to cast him turn after turn if you choose. Early on, Marath will be the most impactful, building up an army of tokens to control the red zone. Later, his creature buffing abilities can be useful winning fights against your opponent's biggest creatures or protecting your own from damage-based removal. And in the endgame, Marath can directly take out an opponent's softened up by your constant assault. This deck features lots of mana ramp spells that speed up your access to large amounts of mana, which is great for such a mana hungry commander. You can also use that mana to cast huge powerful creatures, but be careful to avoid overcommitting your resources to the battlefield. Commander games feature a lot of mass removal, spells and effects that destroy all creatures on the battlefield. Saving a creature card to follow up that destruction will put you in a great position as everyone tries to recover. And as the saying goes, it's always the last fatty that wins the game for you. Okay, so that's the sort of premise of the deck. And then what you find on the flip side is it actually gives a little bit about the sort of background behind Commander, how it's best played, and a little bit about Marath and a bit about Gaiji, the honoured one, and then also the basis of building a commander deck, which you obviously need to know if you're going to modify it so that you don't break it. And so just again to just highlight that for anybody that's not familiar with the basics of the deck. If you decide to personalise your deck or build a new one, first choose a commander. It's okay if you don't have an oversized version of the card, which is really important. That was just put in specifically for these commander products because it looked good to have like an oversized commander in the command zone. Each commander deck must have exactly 100 cards, including its commander. The commander must be a legendary creature. Other than basic lands, each card in the deck must have a different English name. So in the original version of this particular format, it was called EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, where the term Highlander came from the fact that there can be only one, which was the tagline of the original Highlander movie. Commander uses colour identity to determine which cards can be included in a deck. A card's colour identity is determined by its colours and by the mana symbols in its mana cost and rules text. A card can't be included in the deck if any colour in its colour identity isn't in the commander's colour identity. And then below it gives the sort of colour shards of all the decks, including this particular one, which is Nature of the Beast. So there's lots of different ways we can take this on the subsequent videos, and my next video I do is sort of going to explore what options might be open to us in terms of what magic product may be biased towards providing us modifications. But again, prior to doing that, I may have to do an additional analysis video just looking at how the deck hangs together so we don't end up breaking it by removing certain key cards that really contribute towards the synergy of the commander. But just bearing that in mind and thinking about future movement with this, one I've mentioned in a previous video about different products that may or may not help. You might find an intro deck which is in the similar colour, in the same colours, or shares some of the same colours, which could have synergistic creatures in it which would work in the deck, or synergistic non-basic lands. Another way of doing this, and it would certainly increase the toolkit side of this, is to maybe pick another commander deck in an adjacent shard. Now, because the deck contents of the commander decks are very well published, we could actually look into that as a possible option and just see what percentage of the deck it would be worthwhile doing that for, and what sort of returns we would get basically buying another commander deck. But that's just another possible angle you can take with adding to your toolkit for modification. Okay, well, thanks for watching this video, and probably in the next week I'll be putting up the next video, episode 2 of the series. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.